Buffalo After Dark is proud to recommend I Barbecue for You. Pre-orders are suggested by calling 716-880-7667. I Barbecue for You, Buffalo's new barbecue destination.
Just move the coyotes. Don't do another expansion.
Right? It never crossed my mind. So somebody called the house when I was out mowing the grass.
Oh yeah.
There you go.
Yes, sir.
Holy shit, your face is like purple.
Are you still up? Now in our fifth season, it's Buffalo After Dark.
Welcome to Buffalo After Dark, everybody. It is Thursday night, February 13th, and of course, you know what that means. It is basically one day before Valentine's Day. So, of course, if you have your significant other and you want to actually do something well for them, don't forget about them tomorrow, because otherwise they'll probably end up kicking your ass at some point. But anyways, Hanson's back. He was down in the middle of somewhere in the tropics. So, how's things? How was your trip?
Oh, it was fantastic. I desperately needed it, and it was a nice trip overall. And by the way, happy Valentine's Day to you and your blow up doll in your closet.
Fuck you. You've already virtually met my other half. So
I know, because it's like,
fuck you, dude.
I'm fucking with you.
I
But no,
know.
but the trip was good overall. I was on a cruise for 7 days in Orlando, and then I went all across to both the British and the U.S. Virgin Islands, and I was also at sea, and also in the Puerto Plata or Plata, wherever you want to say it, in the Dominican Republic, and no, it was a really fun time. I needed a vacation, and I actually have another one coming up in May, I believe. I think it's May 10th. I'm going to fly to Seattle because we're going on another cruise, but this one is going to Alaska.
Nice. Well, good stuff, man. You get to do the double dip in Seattle, so you get to return to where we just were in October. So,
Well, I also get to add a Mariners game potentially on that list,
There you
depending
go.
on like the flights and all that jazz.
there you go. Well, hey, you could always use that B&B we stayed in when we went to the Bills game out there if you wanted to. So it's all good, but of course, we're going to be here for a little bit. We'll talk a little bit about more about some of the things coming up, and there's actually a fun project I'm going to talk to you about that happened last night, which is why we're actually broadcasting today instead. But of course, we are live on Facebook and YouTube, so if you want to drop your comments, feel free. And of course, if you want to check out our old episodes, go to Spotify. And actually, one of the things that's kind of interesting, and I actually showed you this, I have a bottle of Comarca Garnacha 2020. I actually, for some reason, I don't know why the fuck I'm drinking wine, but I actually have wine here. So,
Well,
so
I didn't even know you were a wine drinker until like 10 minutes ago.
I usually don't. It's like I'll cook with it sometimes. Like I'll make like scampi and different things, and or even like if I do like a red sauce, I like using it just because it's something different. But here we go. We'll do first taste. Salut.
Well, there's plenty of room to improve, I guess, especially on that fine culinary craftsmanship.
That's good stuff. And I don't usually like drinking red wine, but it's actually good stuff. Apparently, hey, and moderation is actually healthy for you. So
There you
that's
go.
that. But in the meantime, let's get to the first order of business, and that is Super Bowl 59. And oh, it was an interesting Super Bowl, and let's just say love hurts because Jalen Hurts totally rammed probably, let's just say he absolutely destroyed Patrick Mahomes and made the Kansas City Chiefs look like the bitches they are, because guess what? We actually had a properly refed game for a change, and we see what happens when they're not getting bullshit calls. And of course, I thought initially, I did get to see some pieces of it, but initially, two bad calls, and I'm like, oh great, here we go again. But Mahomes gets sacked 6 times. Kelsey did absolutely nothing. Xavier Worthy's the only person that actually saved them somewhat in garbage time. And basically with that, we know what the final was, and it was 40-22. And oh, the score is not even close to what it really was on paper. And guess what? The quarterback rating for Patrick Mahomes was the fourth worst all time in any Super Bowl at a 10.7.
Funny how that works. I will be the first to confess it because remember a few weeks ago we both said we were going to protest the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
Well, I kind of stuck to my word. I didn't know who won the game until the next morning. I didn't watch 1 inch of the Super Bowl, and people thought I was bluffing when I said that.
hmm
Because I was like, I am not watching the damn Super Bowl because of the AFC Championship game from a few weeks ago of how the
right.
Bills got screwed over, and then yet I then later find out the next morning because I saw the highlights and I said, honestly, it's poetic justice.
It is. It is. And it's great to see because then, of course, Patrick Mahomes' brother was coming out talking about how they got screwed by the refs. Patrick Mahomes' wife, we got screwed by the refs. Kadarius Toney got arrested this week, which we'll talk about that later. And then on top of it, and yes, there was no proposal to Travis Kelsey on the football field, which of course the meme is like, "You were supposed to propose to me, damn it!" and then, yes, Taylor Swift did not wear any Chiefs gear, which she normally does. So, and she got booed on the huge jumbotron, which was absolutely hilarious to see that. But it was just the way I'll put it. Philadelphia put on a masterclass on how to destroy the Kansas City offense.
Well, that's definitely master craftsmanship from Philly's perspective because I actually just saw the stats from both Jalen Hurts and uh Patrick Mahomes from the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
Just to refresh your memory, Patty Mahomes had 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and he had a 65.63 complete percentage rating, and he had 257 yards. And you were saying what? He was god awful in that game.
he was. He was. He had a 10.7 QB rating, and here's the thing: the touchdowns that he threw were in the fourth quarter
Well, then that's something for you.
against like Philadelphia's like fourth string team.
Well, I'll put it this perspectively. Xavier Worthy, as you mentioned, had 8 receptions for 157 yards total with 2 touchdowns, and he was targeted 8 times. So, in a way, Xavier Worthy, just based on the stat sheet, pretty much nobody did shit. D
Exactly.
Hops did D Hops did nothing. Hollywood Brown did nothing. Travis Kelsey did nothing.
Smith
And then
Schuster did nothing.
yeah, nobody. The only one that really did anything was Worthy. Like, what's Kansas City's obsession with Xavier Worthy is beyond me.
Right. But yeah, the game was completely lopsided. And then, even though Saquon Barkley didn't get a ton of touches in the game, they didn't have to. He didn't have to run it up their throat. And it was just that interesting because literally they went to the air game and they just totally dominated early on. So it was interesting because I was thinking about the fact that they were going to probably try to run Barkley all over the place, and that didn't happen.
Well, I actually, I'm also looking at the stat sheet from Philly's perspective as well.
hmm
Everybody ate on offense. One was Saquon Barkley for 6 receptions for 40 yards, which is not a whole lot.
Right.
Then you had Jahan Dotson, who I believe had a touchdown in that Super Bowl, or it might have got called off. And then, what's it called? AJ Brown had a touchdown
Yep.
for 3 receptions for 43 yards. And then Devontae Smith had a 69-yard bomber from Jalen Hurts
hmm
for a touchdown.
Yeah.
And then my favorite stat, um, Kenny Pickett had 3 attempts for negative 40
Yeah.
yards.
And yet he has a ring.
How the fuck does Kenny Pickett get a fucking Super Bowl ring? It's beyond
Right.
me.
Yeah, I did see when they put Kenny Pickett in because Philly ran up the score so bad that they're like, "Ah, Jalen Hurts, well, you can relax the rest of the game." And
Yeah.
yeah, they pulled a Josh Allen on that one, where it's like, "Yeah, we'll put Allen in for 3.5 quarters, and then we'll let a backup play." But it was, yeah, Pickett looked like ass, like completely when I saw that. But Philly actually spread out the offense a lot, so it kept Kansas City guessing because you would think a lot of times, like in a traditional game, of course, they're going to go to Saquon Barkley and they're going to use him a lot, and they didn't. And basically, Kansas City didn't game plan at all.
Well, too fucking bad. That's what happens when you have the officials rigging games for you and then having to drag you all the way to the damn Super Bowl.
hmm Yeah, It was absolutely crazy. And then on top of it, Kansas City walking in, they're like, "Oh yeah, guess what? We're just gonna win, so we don't have to worry about it." It's like, the officials will take care of us, and it's like, no, they didn't. Philly ran it up so bad there was no way for them to take care of stuff.
Well, it's funny in a way because you were talking about the refs and all that stuff from the
Yeah.
Kansas City Chiefs perspective. Of all the people that I saw that made comments about the Super Bowl, DeAndre Hopkins ran his big fucking mouth like he normally
Oh
does.
yeah,
And he said about the officiating, he said, quote, "It's my first year being with the Chiefs, and I saw a lot of things in the media about the refs. But what are you going if but he says, but what are you all going to say now about the refs and us? There was a lot of touchy calls. Are you going to report that? Are you going to talk about the refs now?"
it's simple. The refs actually did their job.
Quite literally.
And that's
So
because everyone was watching them like beyond to the point where they knew if there was a lot of stuff that was not going to get called, they knew it was a rigged game.
well, I definitely listened to your podcast last week. I definitely listened to last week's episode, which I deeply appreciate you and Rob covering for me. And you both mentioned that the refs were big into the whole gambling industry. You were saying that.
Yeah, we talked
And,
a lot about that last week.
well, quite frankly, it all starts to add up because you were even saying to Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes, which, by the way, I saw that video when I came back in from Orlando. And the question straight up was, um, who was your favorite referee?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you to the fan who asked that question.
It
Because
wasn't a fan; it was an actual news reporter.
was it?
Yeah.
Because I thought it was a
It
fan.
was an actual sports reporter that asked that. And there were
Wow.
actually several reporters that were asking that. So even a lot of the news media is like onto the fact that Kansas City is getting all these calls.
Well, in a way, to me, it's funny because it's like Kansas City got their dick sucked the majority of the year, and then when it comes down to the big game, in the biggest event in the world, it's next to the World Cup. You have all the expectations for this three-peat dynasty and all that stuff. So much went wrong for Kansas City in that game that America itself has won. We saw the potential downfall of the greatest dynasty that never was.
Right. And when you look at how Kansas City played this year, they were not a two-loss team.
No, they weren't.
Easily, they were not a two-loss team. I mean, literally, they should have had at least another 3 or 4 games and losses.
I think they should have lost 6 games in general, but that's just me personally. I mean, when you win by a field goal against the Panthers, a lucky field goal block against Denver and LA with the Chargers, and then slaughtering the Raiders, which is a free win.
Yeah, barely
um,
getting through Carolina.
Yeah, that's what I just said. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the only team they legitimately lost to was Buffalo.
Right. And I don't even count Denver as a legitimate loss because of the fact that because basically Kansas City sat all their starters.
Quite frankly. But it's just funny to me because it's funny how everybody was talking about how the refs were a big help to the Chiefs all year long, but then yet when the Super Bowl comes around, Philly blows them out just based on the highlights.
Yeah.
And then you see the comments from like Kelsey, Mahomes, D-Hop. They're all crying, "Oh
Yeah.
man, the ref didn't help us in this game. We were supposed to be better than Brady. Dynasty threw him down." Like, shut the fuck up.
Right. Yeah. And then it's like, I don't want to hear it from Brittany Mahomes. I don't want to hear it from Patrick Mahomes' brother. I don't want to hear it from his dad. The bottom line is, you guys showed up and you sucked and you lost and you deserve to lose.
People have been saying that for like 4 years that Kansas City was not good. The last 2 Super Bowls that Kansas City was in, they were not great.
Exactly. They did
were-
just enough to win.
Mm-hmm.
And it's questionable because of ref calls, but
It's just the hypocrisy. Oh my God, the hypocrisy from not only, the players, the media. All this week has been, oh, the Eagles are a good team. Congrats, you won fairly. It's about the refs. It's
Yep.
about the Chiefs. How did they lose? I don't know. Media, ESPN, Nick Wright, Dominique, whatever your name is. All those people that sucked your dick for the majority of the last half decade. Now reality has come to slap you in the face, and to the point where you now say, "Oh my God, how did our God Emperor lose the Super Bowl?" Oh, I don't know. Maybe because you got your dick sucked for the majority of those few years, and maybe if you didn't screw Buffalo over, maybe you wouldn't be having one of the lowest rated Super Bowls of all time. And by the way, I wouldn't be surprised if the viewings of the Super Bowl were rigged.
Yeah, in fact, it'll be actually very interesting to see what those numbers actually are. Because apparently, here it is. So it was at it was actually 3% higher from last year from what it's saying. Approximately 127.7 million viewers. However, it was actually higher at the beginning of the game, and especially in the second quarter, where it peaked at 137.7 million viewers. And then basically after halftime, it just tanked.
Okay, well, first off, I don't think really that many people were watching the first half of the game because they were suspecting, oh, Kansas City is going to win anyway. I think most people tuned into the second half because they saw the halftime show and they said, yeah, Kendrick Lamar is just a waste of source material. So my guessing is that the viewership went up for the second half because they saw the scoreboard from the Super Bowl at halftime and they said Philly might actually pull this off. And of course they did. And the funny thing about the Super Bowl is from what I read, apparently, maybe you could correct me on this, is the Eagles not once the whole game did they have the blitz.
They weren't running any blitzes, which was interesting. They had like no blitz packages out.
Maybe they didn't have to.
Yeah, they really, the way that they were playing it, they really didn't have to use it. And they were just the way, I mean, they were running like multiple man fronts and things like that, but literally, Mahomes had zero time in the pocket. And
Well,
he couldn't do jack shit, which we know he can't do it if he gets rushed.
in a way it's kind of funny because the Chiefs, they talked about how great their team is all year long, and yet they go to the dance and they get the shit kicked out of them. Their offensive line looked like the freaking Browns or the Giants,
Yeah.
in that sense. And now, after that Super Bowl, just, based on everything, I would have to question, is Mahomes actually one of the GOATs of the sport? Because the media has been hyping him like that for the last couple of years. Does he actually suck, or is it just because the media overhyped him to the point where he could potentially be better than Brady? And then that Super Bowl also showed we will never, ever, ever have to hear how Mahomes was going to be better than Brady ever again.
Oh, thank God.
We will never hear the end of it. Thank God.
Yeah, because trust me, we'd be hearing about the three-peat in like 5 millenniums from now, and probably like 5 million afterlives from now, when Lord knows when we're doing this show in like 2837 or something. Like all those million afterlives forward.
Yeah, we won't even be alive at 2837.
Yeah, who knows? Or if by some chance both of us are, we're probably some fucking cyborgs at that point.
Or, like a Futurama where they take like a figure's head and they put it in like a bowl.
We're cryogenically preserved.
Isn't Ted Williams cryogenically preserved?
I thought he was.
I could have sworn he was, but that's not the point. The point is that, a lot of people saw the second half of the Super Bowl and they're just like, God damn, we didn't expect Kansas City to play like this. And they really believed that they were going to somehow beat the Eagles. And I said, guys, you're not Brady. You never will be Brady. And I hate that bastard.
Right.
But I'm just saying.
But I mean, at the same time, and yes, there was the cheat gate and the deflate gate and all that stuff. But at the same time, I mean, looking back, I mean, you can't deny what Brady did.
No, you can't, because Brady, here's the difference, and I've said it before. Brady was feared by many in the NFL.
Oh, yeah.
He was very good. I mean, did he have his problems? Yes. Did he have scandals? Yes. But you also have to remember, Tom Brady didn't have elite wide receivers throughout the majority of his career, except for like Randy Moss. Wes Welker was a homegrown player. Actually, no. Wes Welker was more of like a third-tier wide receiver on like another team.
And then,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, and then later on he got Julian Edelman, except then he had his knee blown out a couple times, so I mean he didn't really get to do much with him at all.
Well, Julian Edelman is also, notorious. He was a Super Bowl MVP,
Right.
and he's won multiple Super Bowls. So the whole thing with Brady is Brady makes everyone else around him better, and he proved it
Hmm.
by going to the Buccaneers. It was really him. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. He
Like
he
it.
got out of the Bill Belichick shadow, and Brady proved that it's not Belichick as the coach; it was him.
So that's why he's the undisputed GOAT. And as much as I hate Tom Brady, here's a hot take. As much as I hate the Patriots, and I will always hate the Patriots, I will always hate Tom Brady.
Hmm.
My take is this. I hate Kansas City more in my lifespan now than I have with the Patriots dynasty.
It's a good way to look at it, and I mean, and I will say this: Brady took a mediocre Tampa Bay team, and he took them to the Super Bowl, and he got them a win, and there you go.
Yeah. So realistically, if you think about the Patriots and you think about the Chiefs, again, the Patriots were feared. A lot of people did not like New England, and consider we're Bills fans. We're basically
Yeah,
used to the ass whooping
yeah,
that he used to
and we
give.
still hate the Patriots,
Of course, yeah,
and we always will.
of course, because it's division rivals, but not as much as like Kansas City. There's a difference. When New England was good, they were feared. And they were actually respected. When the
Hmm.
Chiefs are good, no one actually fucking likes them. The only people that like them are the big corporate buyers, Roger Goodell, etc., etc.,
And the
etc.,
Swifties.
and the Swifties. And by the way, I should mention that if Travis Kelsey, who by the way was given a deadline by the Chiefs, they told him you have till March 14th to tell us if you're going to play next season or not.
Hmm.
Because if he doesn't tell them, then they're going to either cut him or whatever. My speculation is that he's going to end up retiring.
It wouldn't surprise me, and he did not look good at all during that game. He
He didn't.
looked like he was so out of it, and it was to a point where I think his body just gave out.
Well, one comment that came out was that he was so distraught during the Super Bowl when people booed his pop star girlfriend. And I'm just saying to myself, Jesus Christ, what a fucking beta male this guy is.
Yeah,
I, I mean, you literally, so you're basically telling everybody, my girlfriend got booed. And then it took a huge toll on me and my pussy. Are
I can guarantee you he didn't get laid after the Super Bowl that night.
you kidding? He might have.
They probably didn't. Taylor's like, why the fuck did you not win the Super Bowl? Damn it! You were supposed to propose to me so I could get that nice little alimony payment.
Wait, bitch, go up the stairs. You're gonna shove and like it.
Yeah. Well, we all know what happened. He went from the shaved head to having the like locks now. So
Quite literally. But no, seriously, Travis Kelsey, yes, he will end up in Canton because of the legacy of Patrick Mahomes.
yeah.
But he is the biggest beta male that I have ever seen over. Like, granted, I hated Gronk, but at least
Right.
Gronk wasn't fucking, dating a super.
At least Gronk is hilarious on certain things too. So
Gronk was actually good.
yeah, yeah, he
So,
was. There's no denying that.
fucking Gronk, really. I will take Rob Gronkowski over Travis Kelsey any day. And
Yeah.
the funny thing about Kelsey is his production in the last couple of years have really went downhill.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. He's at the tail end of his career, I think, at this point. So
I'm pretty sure he's 35.
yeah, he is up there. He is up there. So
Yeah.
it's one of those things. You're in the league for that long. I mean, things are going to happen, and he's not going to be like the top tight end that he was. So
No, but you know what? I think there's other tight ends that are up in the NFL that I think most people would probably take. You have guys like TJ Hawkinson, you had Dallas Goddard, just to
yeah.
name a few people. But I do think that, Kelsey, when he was in the peak of his power, he was really damn good.
Mm.
But I think before Kelsey, there was a different motive about him. After the whole, Taylor Swift thing, he
Yeah.
became just a massive media obsessed mega douche.
Hmm. Yeah. It's very much so. Very much so.
Yeah.
But with that being said, Oh, we got to see the aftermath in Philly.
Oh
And all
my
I can say,
God.
I think I sent you the link. I was actually watching this YouTube stream called Smoke and Scan, which is absolutely hilarious. And if you ever get a chance, I'll give it a free plug right now. It's like that is a funny stream to watch, especially on Tuesday and Friday nights. But oh yeah, the city was up in flames, and then we saw like the people dressed in eagle costumes on top of a garbage truck. We saw some traffic light poles get stolen out of the ground, and fans carrying them, and it was just an all-out riot.
Well, it wasn't just that. Did you see the horses that were being used in downtown Philly on
Yeah,
Chestnut
and they
Street?
were getting spooked and everything.
No, 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 no. People were literally like riding on them, like they were galloping on horses on Chestnut Street in downtown Philadelphia during the
Oh,
commotion, which
Jesus.
is funny. So you had that going on. You had people, pushing off,
Yeah.
stoplights and carrying them across downtown.
Yep.
You had people break into fucking, upscale restaurants
Yeah.
and stealing their napkins and utensils to build a bonfire.
Yeah, actually, a couple trucks that had like paper stuff in there got like caught, and then they offloaded everything to build bonfires. They actually had some DJs like carrying speakers, and they were setting up on random street corners and blasting stuff. So
Oh yeah, they were flipping the garbage trucks. They were flipping cars. By
yeah.
the way, speaking of the riots, have you ever seen that notorious video from TMZ from like 7 years ago when the Eagles won the first Super Bowl?
Oh yeah, and they had the huge ass riot back then too.
Well, no, you know what I'm talking about specifically?
Yeah, I do remember about it, but tell us the story about it.
Some guy was so shit-faced drunk that he decided to go on all fours like an animal drinking water, bopping down. You know how
Hmm.
like animals use their front, yeah.
Yeah,
So this guy
yeah, they'll put their
used
head
it,
down like this, and then they'll like
yeah.
lick up the water and everything, and
Yeah. Well, instead of water, this guy decided to eat horse shit.
oh Jesus, I do remember that.
I'm like, oh my God, that is so gross.
Oh God.
And if I went and showed that to somebody, which I have, if I went into showing somebody like that, I would have
Oh.
said, this is from Sunday and not 7 years ago.
Oh God, Jesus.
That's if you have a screamer's stomach, that is not a video you should be watching, period.
Yeah, exactly. But on top of that, there was actually some good stuff that did happen, and yes, the correct MVP was chosen, and that is Josh Allen. And yes, the thing is, and I'm looking at some of the voting, and all these Baltimore fans are so fucking butthurt about the fact that Lamar didn't win the MVP. So of course, last year Lamar won it, and Josh Allen had better stats, and they're like, oh well, he did more with the team. But then this year, the same fans are like, oh, Lamar had the better stats, he should have won it. I'm like, dude, you know how many freaking Pro Bowlers and future Hall of Famers you have on Baltimore, and you look what the Bills had, and Josh Allen basically carried a team of nothing all the way to the AFC Championship game? It's like, and on top of it, I mean, when you look at Lamar Jackson, he ended up playing, what, probably like almost 10 extra quarters of football because the Bills ran up the score so much that Josh Allen didn't even have to play the fourth quarter half the time.
Well, that says a lot about the Ravens than it does about the Bills. But I will say is this. I didn't know who won MVP until Saturday morning when I landed from my cruise trip into Orlando when I was back on
Hmm.
US soil. So as soon as 7 a.m. turned on, I turned on my phone and I took it off airplane mode because we were told to.
Yeah.
Um, we take it off airplane mode, and the next thing you know, I get all these notifications from you and all these people, and I see Josh Allen wins MVP notes, and I said that guy absolutely deserved it, and I was like astonished that he
Yeah.
actually won it because I was really doubting myself that he was going to win it because of all the media hype about Lamar Jackson. So my impression is that looking at stats, he's the first NFL MVP since Thurman Thomas won the MVP title in 1991, and
Yeah.
he's the first Buffalo icon since Dominic Hasek to win the Hart Trophy as league MVP in '98.
Yeah. First ever Buffalo Bills QB to win it. And basically, on top of that, is actually interesting because he was not the first team All Pro. That was Lamar Jackson.
Quite literally. See, and here's the thing too, is Ravens fans, in my opinion, are slowly becoming cancer because it's getting to a point now where Ravens fans are acting like Dallas Cowboys fans,
Hmm.
where they think because their team is so great, you won two Super Bowls in the last 30 years, and yet here you are with an old pro quarterback who his abilities in the NFL level won't last him very long. And yet here they are threatening Emmanuel Acho or Acho, whatever you say his name, Dan Orlovsky. All these people are such a bunch of fucking hillbilly degenerates that they literally cried wolf all year long about how Lamar was so good. Not to say he isn't.
Right. He
but
is a good QB.
but the fact that they just said, "Oh, Lamar, he's gonna totally win it," that is bullshit. Because there's other players in the National Football League who were statistically better than him. Josh Allen being one,
Burrow.
Joe Burrow, yeah, Jared Goff, Saquon Barkley.
Yeah.
I mean,
Hell, even Jaden Daniels had a great year.
Jaden Daniels was just came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
But
and for
in
him to
his
get
def-
Rookie of the Year, he deserved it.
Yeah, absolutely. That I will hear no arguments about Jaden Daniels. But as far as Lamar, dude, he's already won two. Why do you have to just rub it in more?
Yeah.
Did they just fully suspect Josh Allen was never going to win shit?
I don't know. But then it's like, then you have some of the sites saying, and this is actually one that, and you know I absolutely hate this Dolphins fan with a passion. That's that Tyler Terabaccio, which he can go fuck himself as far as I'm concerned. Because he was playing, oh, the Dolphins have won the Super Bowl again. I'm like, shut up, dude. It's like, yeah, go play your Madden, like, '03 or something. But then he was calling it the DEI award for the MVP. I'm like, you are a fucking idiot, dude.
It's almost like he can't admit that his dad is literally the MVP.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, Josh Allen's your daddy. What has Tua done? Oh, nothing.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm really happy that I was wrong about Josh Allen. So I actually have an interesting theory about this MVP award, and this is not a short-term thing. This is a long-term thing, and maybe you're going to disagree with me on it. I don't care, but I have a feeling, just solely based on Josh Allen winning the MVP, two things are going to happen. Number one, since he won the MVP and he's finally on paper and he's getting the national spotlight and
Yeah.
like he deserves. The big thing with Josh Allen is he's going to get a lot of big name free agents that will want to come to Buffalo in the offseason to help him get to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I would agree, and I think it's going to happen. I mean, Myles Garrett, the Bills actually have interest in him. And I'm like,
Yeah.
you know what? That's a good thing, because honestly, we need to have someone to shore up the pass rush.
Yeah, and Max Crosby too, and Trey Hendrickson. There's a lot of people that the Bills have their eye on. But if there's one thing we could take from the Philadelphia Eagles is the Eagles have an interior pass rushing unit. The Bills don't.
Right.
And it was clearly exposed in the fourth quarter in the AFC Championship game.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, they absolutely annihilated Kansas City for the first, like, 3 quarters of the game. And after that point, the damage was done. There was no way Kansas City was coming back.
No, not a chance. But and I do think though, the other thing too I was gonna say was not only do I think that a big load of free agents are gonna help the Bills this offseason to make it and take a cheap, contract or whatever, but I truly believe at this point the Bills are gonna go to the Super Bowl. Because think of it like this. You win the MVP, you get all these superstar players to come play for you. You have a great year again. I think at this point, at least 13, 14 wins, minimum. You make the AFC Championship game, but you win it this time. You
Finally.
go to the Super Bowl, and keep in mind, Josh Allen was born 30 miles from San Francisco, or 10 miles, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
He would literally get a homecoming game in the Super Bowl, wins MVP, and then the new Super Bowl banner gets put in place for the new stadium.
Right. And you know what? That would be beautiful to see. And of course, we all know the NFL likes to script stuff because they are classified as sports entertainment, just like the WWE is classified as sports entertainment. That would be a perfect homecoming for him.
Yeah, but what's funny too is Terrell Owens actually said that the reason why the Chiefs got exposed the way they did was because people were up their ass about the whole rigging system thing, which is funny. But on the contrary of what I just said about Josh Allen and the Bills, I truly think that could happen. I'm not saying it definitely will happen, but I believe that it can happen. Because for me right now, the NFL has been on so much pressure with the logo, the rigging, that they said, fuck it. Kansas City's going to get blown out, and fuck it. We're not doing the 2-color pattern anymore. We're going to just put 10 different colors in it, and people are just guessing.
Yeah, notice how they changed the logo after it was already out.
Yeah, and it's like this is what happens with the power of the people, as in you and me.
Yeah, exactly. And all of us others at podcast that we're the underground media. So that's
Quite
what we
literally.
are, which is a good thing. It's like, hey, in the course, we all know the underground media. We say it like it is, and if you don't like it, too bad. That's why we have that disclaimer at the beginning of the show
Big
for
time.
anyone that watches. So of course, it's a beautiful thing to see. But of course, yeah, we're a little over we're a little into the second part of the show. So of course, if you want to jump on, we are live on Facebook and YouTube, and of course, you can check out older episodes on Spotify. But kind of sticking with NFL for a little bit. Well, we know one team that's not going to be winning a Super Bowl anytime soon, and that is the New York Jets. And of
Oh
course,
God.
Aaron Rodgers is officially out, all because he didn't want to give up being on the Pat McAfee show.
Well, in a way, I don't blame him because we do live in the U.S. and we do have the right to free speech.
Hmm.
But for the Jets to basically tell a 42-year-old grown man, no, you can't go on the Pat McAfee show,
You have to be
it's
at
kind of
practice. You have to be at our team events.
like you're not gonna like that's not how you're gonna get the God Emperor to stay with your team.
Right, exactly. And plus, for those who don't know, the Pat McAfee show pays Aaron Rodgers $17 million a year to show up one day a week for like an hour and a half.
Usually,
That's a
and
damn good payout.
well, I mean, for Rodgers, I think because he knows he doesn't have much time left in the NFL. But the question is, who is going to take him on? There's been talk of Pittsburgh. There's been talk of Minnesota. There's been talk of Tennessee, even. In a way, it's crazy to me because it's like you're telling a grown man you can't go on the Pat McAfee show to spew your opinion because you don't want the team to be, getting in trouble by the media. Bitch,
Right.
you already been in trouble by the media. And this
Exactly.
was and mind you, this was before Aaron Rodgers. So that whole aspect doesn't even matter because the only people that are telling him this are the same group of people who said, "No, we're not going to take Jerry Jeudy because of his Madden rating." Like,
Hmm.
yeah, we're going to totally take your advice on that.
Yeah, seriously. It's like Aaron Rodgers, you're already going to go in the Hall of Fame. Just hang up the cleats. You're done.
I just realized your character is no longer able to be on the show until he actually signs with the new NFL team.
Yeah, or I can do one if he decides to actually retire.
Well, yeah, that's if he actually stays in the news, which I don't think he is.
Yeah, he probably won't. But yeah, the good old New York Jets, they're gonna remain irrelevant. But if you want to see some funny stuff, there is that New York joke site. So
Oh, I love the New York jokes. I listen to them every Jets game. Whenever they have a game on, I always listen to them. Their reactions are so funny.
yeah, for sure. And then yeah, last thing we'll talk about in football before we go into hockey for the night. The Saints, well, they finally have their head coach, Kellen Moore. It only took them, however, long to actually sign him because nobody was left. But then they have a little controversy right now, and apparently they may have protected some child predators.
Yeah, so let's start from the top. So Kellen Moore is the new head coach of the New Orleans Saints. And let's be honest, this is the only reason that he even got this job is because nobody else wanted it.
Exactly. Yeah, and actually, here's one. Joe Brady. They wanted to interview him a second time. Joe Brady told him to f off.
But quite literally. But and then Mike McCarthy said no. Joe Brady said no. There were some good coaches that were potential
Yeah.
candidates that all said no. I mean, you're not going to bring back Dennis Allen because I think he got hired to be the Bears' defensive coordinator.
Hmm.
So in a way, it's just funny because it's like you have the Saints who are they really have no direction
Yeah.
at all.
Exactly. And then you look at Chicago. They hired Ben Johnson out of Detroit first thing. So
Well, yeah, that was genius on their end, and that's just in spite of how fucking trash they are.
right. Exactly. Yep. And then of course, to anyone saying that we crap on the Bears, well, hey, may their owner rest in peace after dying at the age of 102.
Yeah, Virginia McCaskey.
Hmm. Yep.
But I will say is her offspring is now able to sell the team and fuck off to the Hamptons.
There we go. So who knows? Maybe they'll get some relevant ownership for a change.
Perhaps.
It only took how many generations of the Ford family to finally get Detroit to where they are?
Oh God, I don't know, but I think they passed it on to their daughter.
Yeah, and she actually decided to do something and actually get the right people in.
Yeah, good for her.
Yeah, exactly. She made Detroit relevant again.
She did.
Yeah.
But as far as the New Orleans Saints, they're in the news, and not everybody's talking about it. But I think it should be a bigger topic than it actually is. So we're going to expose it. So top officials from the New Orleans Saints helped cover up sexual abuse and child pornography scandals involving Catholic priest Archbishop Gregory Amen and others who were tied to the archdiocese of the New Orleans for years, according to the Associated Press.
hmm Yeah, and this actually came out in the AP, so it is a legit article if you wanted to take a look at it. But it's pretty bad for what came out. And what ended up happening is that there was a list of predatory priests, and apparently, what happened is that they actually decided to turn to an ally, which is the front office of the New Orleans Saints. So basically, what happened, the Saints and the church wanted to keep the list out of view. And of course, it got exposed. And now there's actually a conspiracy because apparently not only the New Orleans Saints front office and not only the church in New Orleans, but apparently now there's a possible issue involving a sitting federal judge, and then there's also even the Saints' own emails got released, which they were apparently so involved in the church's damage control that a team spokesman actually briefed their boss on a 2018 call with the city's top prosecutor hours before the church actually released a list of clergymen accused of abuse. And the call apparently allowed them to take certain people off the list so they wouldn't be exposed. So that was one of the big problems. And then apparently after that, then the senior VP of communications, Greg Benzel, provided fly on the wall updates about local media interviews, and essentially it suggested that the church and the team leaders were all on the same team. They were basically covering each other, and it's absolutely crazy. So it's like, why would the Saints go to that length to cover for priests who did stupid shit to kids in
You know,
that way? It's disgusting.
that is disgusting. And the fact that this not only tarnishes their reputation, it's as if the whole bounty hunting scandal was
Mhm.
bad
Oh,
enough.
this is way worse.
Oh yeah, but at least with the bounty hunting, and you know, I'm not condoning it, but when they did it with Greg Williams as the DC and all that, they said, "Oh, go injure Brett Favre. We'll give you $15,000 or $25,000 or whatever the price was at the time."
Mhm.
Yeah, that's nothing compared to, child molestation, especially getting involved with the church.
Right.
Like that's fucking disgusting.
It is. And then on top of it, they had a huge PR campaign, and it might also involve the NBA New Orleans Pelicans, which they have their arena right next to the Superdome. But at the same time, it's like, you can't cover for this shit. It's like you got to expose it.
Yeah, so not only are the Saints guilty of it, but the Pelicans are too.
Possibly the Pelicans might be also involved with it, and a lot of it was uncovered by local news media and the AP, which give them credit. At least they're exposing it. So it is something where right now, I mean, it's going to get uglier before that situation gets better. But my thought about that, don't be surprised if we see a situation where, here's a hot take, the owner of the New Orleans Saints may be forced to sell the team.
Well, good luck because the Bensons, are filthy rich and all that. But like, I mean, in a way, I could see it being like something.
Yeah, kind of like Dan Snyder 2.0. He had sexual allegations, and basically he was forced to sell the Washington team.
Yeah, and he also was part of the coup de grace for John Gruden to get him fired from the Raiders.
Hmm
But the point is that this this like ordeal reminds me from a few years ago with the Chicago Blackhawks, where it was revealed that the team itself, with its trainer, sexually abused Kyle Beach when he was a prospect.
hmm
And they said, we care more about winning the Stanley Cup than sexual allegations.
Yeah, and it destroyed Joel Quenville and a bunch of other coaches, as well as other
Yeah.
players.
Yeah, and Coach Q tried to get back in, hasn't got a job since. Stan Bowman to this day, which I'm still clustered by. How did Stan Bowman get a GM job again?
I don't know. I really don't know how that happened.
I don't know either, and I really don't want to know because it's fucked up. So
Yeah.
then the NHL says, "Oh, here you go, Blackhawks. Here's Connor Bedard."
Yeah, exactly.
I will never ever forget that episode that we did
Oh,
when we
that
talked
was
about that.
yeah. That I was gonna say we went in big time into that episode. I mean,
Oh yeah,
that was. I think we made that. That was like one of the very few times I think we only covered one issue on a show.
because it was so fucked up. But here's the Saints doing the same thing almost, but with children.
Right. Which is absolutely horrific. And here's the other thing. Apparently, ever since the Saints started working with the church, apparently there's at least 7 priests that have been discovered to have been part of that.
Oh my God.
So it's just absolutely pathetic. And apparently, the state police in Louisiana ended up doing a wide ranging search warrant at the Archdiocese of New Orleans. And they also seized a lot of records that include communications directly with the Vatican, which, of course, for those who don't know, the Vatican is basically the highest place in the Catholic Church. I mean, that's basically the highest power that you have.
Like,
But it's just absolutely insane that they would even consider assisting them on a PR aspect. It's like, why? It's
100%.
like, let the church handle it on their own fucking self. I don't give a shit. It's like, don't bring your team into it, because apparently one of the other things that came out is there was litigation filed in 2020, and this was just coming out now also. More than 600 people are now saying that they were abused by the clergy.
600?
Over 600.
Are you serious?
And that's in the AP.
Oh my God.
I mean,
And how is this not a bigger story than it is?
exactly. And that's the thing I would love to know. Because apparently the AP is now unearthing it for everybody. And some of the local news media in New Orleans, I believe WWL TV is one of the stations that's really diving in and covering this. But it's like, you have a church that's abused over 600 people, and the New Orleans Saints are providing PR cover for the church. I don't get it.
I
It's
seriously
like,
don't.
morally, that's fucked up.
Yeah, I mean, no sane person that works within the church would be doing this. But there are some sick fucks who work, and
Oh, there
unfortunately, there are some sick fucks who unfortunately work in the Catholic Church, or
Yeah.
that brings their ideas to the church.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, it's like they grieve on children. This is what they do.
Yeah, it's pathetic. I mean, even Buffalo, New York, the church is filing bankruptcy to try and get out of having to pay like all these sexual harassment lawsuits. It's like the same shit.
It's okay. I'll
Except
put
the
it this
Bills and the Sabres and none of the local sports teams partner with the church. So at least, they're not partnering on the PR standpoint, and they don't partner with them at all. But it's like, the New Orleans Saints, why the hell would you partner and give PR support when you know there's like pedophilia shit going on?
And the fact that, and there's two things I want to say. When it comes to the stuff that's coming out about the Saints, if this was any other like person, like you and I are adults,
Right.
when we sexually, get into where with our spouses,
Right.
that's different. But when it comes to children, this is a big no.
Absolutely, that's completely 100% off limits, and that
'Cause-
always would be 100% off limits regardless of the age.
Because what we do as a human race, what we do with another adult, with our spouses or girlfriends or wives,
Yeah,
that's normal. But
right.
what they
That's
did,
consensual.
that's not a mistake. That's a fucking crime.
Right, exactly. And for those who don't know, and Bobby's had the chance to meet my other half online, and she has kids, and I basically am dad to her kids. So I watch over them to the point where it's like, if anything would happen to any of them, oh, you better believe me, it's like, good luck holding me back from going after somebody, because I totally would. Because that shit's unacceptable, and it
But-
never would be acceptable.
The point is that so much has come out about this New Orleans Saints story. It's just disgusting. At this point, I'm almost at the point where I have no respect for them anymore. Because how are you supposed to take an organization this seriously? Not because you're garbage as a team, but you're garbage as an ownership. Because
Right.
think of it. if you have the Benson family involved, you have Gail Benson potentially, or Tom Benson when he
Yeah.
was alive. Mickey Loomis may have potentially been involved. Hell, how far back does this go?
Exactly. And it's like, why would you even cover for something like this in the first place?
It's disgusting.
It is. It is. And it should never have even come into like a situation where it's like, oh, we're going to do it. It's like, no, that should have never happened from day one. I mean, the team, what they should have done is just said, figure it out on your own. We're staying out of it. That's all they had to do. And now, with all this stuff coming out and the fact that they're providing PR support for an organization that may have affected well over 600 people with these types of charges, fuck off.
No, it's not only the Saints that's guilty of this, the NFL is also guilty of this.
Well, yeah,
because
because they allowed it.
yeah, that's the point. They're probably in on it. That's probably why that, it's not getting as much coverage. So I find it ironic
They're probably
that they're willing.
silencing it. And
Yeah,
they did silence it for a long time.
Yeah, so coming across, they're willing to cover up priests who are illegally molesting children underground, but yet they make a big fucking deal about gambling for Calvin Ridley, which is like a slap in the hand when
Yeah.
in terms of punishment. Or no, I have a better one. They were willing to give us a suspension for Deshaun Watson for 11 goddamn games. Yeah, we all know what happened there.
Yeah,
him
for having
being
over 40 counts of sexual harassment.
Yeah, and like what Deshaun Watson did was shitty, but this is worse.
Right. And the only reason the Deshaun Watson situation is not as bad is because at least it was adults.
That's the point.
But even still, it's not even a good situation anyways. But when you're doing something stupid like that to kids and perverting them, hell no.
No, I totally agree with you on that. If you ever put your hands on a child in that level, prospectively, you not only deserve to get your ass beat and you go to jail, you deserve to rot in hell.
Exactly. And, I hope that this does get uncovered a bit more because there's a lot of people. I can already tell you, there's a lot of people that are going to be exposed for the wrong reasons. But at the same time, now that they will be getting exposed, then the right things can be done to try and make the situation better. But still, it's no excuse for what happened. It's like Saints for doing that. Fuck you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, that being said, and now that I'm actually beyond pissed off with that whole thing,
What was it? Why don't we jump?
Let's jump into hockey.
Yeah. Okay. So
The Four Nations tournament got off to a big start.
yes.
And I will say, Canada came back. Well, actually, Sweden came back in that game against Canada yesterday, and Canada did win it in overtime. But it was interesting because I was watching part of that. And take a guess at if you were to put the over-under of shots on goal in the first period at, let's say, over-under 10, what would you guess?
0.
Actually, no, it was less than 5 for Sweden. They only had 3.
Well, that alone is embarrassing.
Yeah. And yet Sweden came back.
Because Canada got cocky. And okay, so here's my thing about the Four Nations face-off. For one, I think it's a very interesting idea.
Mhm.
And I also think that this is what I like to call a sneak preview of the 2026 Winter Olympics in Italy, because the NHL players are going overseas to play in the biggest stage in the Winter Games
Yep.
next season, which is crazy. And that's also including the idea about the All-Star game that's coming up next year in Long Island, which we're probably going to end up doing it. But the point is Four Nations Face-Off has never been done before. It's between 4 countries, between Finland, Sweden, the United States, and Canada. And they're all fighting for the Four Nations Face-Off, I guess, trophy or whatever it's called. And then, no, so I wish the tournament was bigger, but it applies to the name. But it's like, what does everyone else do? Do they just sit on their ass for 2 weeks? Like, what do they do?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. It's like, I think they're treating it as more like similar to what they do with the Olympic break. It's like, hey, rest up, heal up, and then go for the last however many games.
Well, also taking into account, there could also be trades that could be made from now to the trade deadline, which I think is March 7th. But the point of the whole tournament, I think, is intriguing, but I also think it's a risk because Exhibit A is Shea Theodore, who may have just broken his hand and he's out until the tournament or something like that. So injuries are a big problem that could happen in this tournament, and it could really impact the team down the road. That's why I'm not a fan of the tournaments like the Four Nations Face Off or the World Cup of Hockey. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, it's a very good point. And just to even throw in there just a couple of the early details so far. I mean, right now Sidney Crosby is a point leader for Team Canada with 3 points. Mark Stone's got a goal. Same thing with like overall. And then if you look at the goals against, Jordan Bennington right now is leading with 2.73. So I mean, overall, not bad from what we're seeing, but right now Crosby's a point leader, so I mean that's no surprise. And then of course Marchand's got a goal, Broden's got a goal, McKinnon and Kemp have a goal. So I
Marner
mean,
scored the game winner.
yeah, yep. So that happens. So and then apparently the World Cup of Hockey comes back in 2028, so that'll be interesting to see how that all works out. But apparently right now Crosby and McKinnon are the ones that are leading a lot of the way for Team Canada. So interesting to see how that's going to work. And then of course with Finland, UPL is going to get the nod in a lot of those games.
Well, I mean, we'll just have to see how it plays out. But it basically the entire aspect of this tournament is very interesting because it's like one half of the exhibition games are taking place in Montreal,
Hmm.
but then when the actual tournament begins, I think next week, those sets of games, including the championship game, take place in Boston.
Yeah, and they are going to play a good chunk of the games there. And actually, just to throw everyone a real time recap, USA versus Finland is tied at 1 with it being in the first intermission. Right now, Yoki Haru ended up scoring for Team Finland, and Brady Kachuk got the goal for USA. So we have that. Penalty box was relatively empty for the most part. It was only a minor for cross checking with Joel Armia, and Noah Hannafin got a tripping call. But right now, USA leads 12 shots to 7. They're leading in the faceoff percentage 56 to 44. They're leading in the hits 13 to 6. Block shots are pretty even. Giveaways, it was 7 to 5, so fairly close. But the USA team had 3 takeaways.
Yeah, you know what's another stupid thing that came out too, since we're talking about the Four Nations face-off, is the NHL needs Russia to, quote, get through their world politics before rejoining the international play. So, in other words, the players who have no involvement in politics regarding Ukraine and Russia are
Hmm.
told, oh, you have to suck Ukraine's dick for the next 4 years if you want to play in the national stage. Like, dude, what they've done to Russia is so fucked up. Like, I don't even know where to begin with that. Because it's like, first off, it's not even the international play that's an issue for Russia. It also affects the Hall of Fame because players like Al Ovechkin, who's a future Hall of Famer,
Hmm.
no doubt about that, will get in. But then you have guys like Alexander Mogilny, who's being left off of the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, and he should have been in a long time ago.
Yeah, Sergei Fedorov, that's another one. I don't know if he's in there. Is he?
I don't think he is, and he's another one that deserves to go in the hall.
Yeah, Fedorov. What else? What did I just say? Mogilny.
Yeah.
So yeah, the whole defector thing, I get it. But how is the Hall of Fame ruling and the international tournament have any impact on Russian-born players? Isn't that considered discrimination?
I would think so.
And people say, "Oh, it's perfectly, justified with Russia." Now, if they did something really shitty, like in politics in Russia, like if they invaded the United States or whatever, which that will never happen. But as far as um anything like that, then okay. But as far as you know, how do I say this? Basically what's going on with Ukraine and Russia in the world of politics is really taking a huge toll on them. And I don't think that's entirely fair to put that out on the players.
Hmm.
But because it's gotten so like crazy with the world of politics, it's insane.
Yeah,
Quite
it is.
literally.
It is. But it'll be an interesting tournament to say the least. But here's actually some real time stuff on Alex Ovechkin in the chase to become the all time goal scorer. So as of this afternoon, he is tied for seventh in the league, 26 goals in the last 39 games. And since coming back from the broken leg, he's actually ended up scoring 4 goals in his first 5 games. Right now, he ended up against Philly the other night. He scored number 879, so he is only 16 goals away from tying the record.
He's gonna do it.
He will, and it'll be this season, I think, at this point. I mean, 16 goals away, and if he's scoring on average like 1 to 2 goals a game, he's gonna do it.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of that, we have some more news about the Four Nations face-off and Team Canada. You want to hear it?
Sure.
You know how sometimes the rules change in overtime just drastically solely on in terms of liking, like 3-on-3 and stuff
Yep.
like that. The Four Nations face-off is kind of giving us a sneak preview of what could come in the NHL in the future. For example, overtime will be 10 minutes for the round robin games. It's 3 points for a win in regulation, 2 points for a win in overtime or a shootout, and 1 point for a loss in overtime or a shootout during the Four Nations face-off.
Okay. That's interesting to hear that change.
Well, there's speculation that this could impact teams in the future. Like, for example, we have if you lose in regulation, you don't deserve shit. But then if you lose in OT or whatever, you get one. But if you get a win in the regular season, that's 2 wins or 2 points in regulation or
Right.
something like that. So they might change this in the near future to 3. You know what I'm saying? Like 3 points or whatever. Like, I'm interested how that system's going to actually work because there's also talk of expansion of the scheduling, but we'll see how that plays out.
Right. And then there's talk about expansion in general in the NHL, which I know we've covered that a few times on this show. But
Yep.
I mean, we'll of course cover it again as we go forward. But that being said, I mean, there are some deals that have been taking place, and then also one of the big things that came out actually in the last week or so, St. Louis Blues ended up acquiring forward Corey Arnovsky from the Pittsburgh Penguins for forward Matthias Laferriere, and then also on the 7th, the Nashville Predators made a deal where they ended up acquiring Mark Friedman, defenseman from Vancouver, for future considerations, which means nothing. And so, of course, we have that, and then going back to February 3rd, I think we might have covered this on the show also, but Utah ends up getting Samuel Walker from the Minnesota Wild for future consideration. So those are really the most recent deals that we had, and I know we covered Michael Granlund and Cody Ceci going from San Jose to Dallas for a first-round pick and a third-round pick in the 2025 draft, which, of course, when the draft comes up, we'll cover that, and that's usually right before we go on summer hiatus.
Well, Cody Ceci, yes, and Michael Granlund went to Dallas. But you said they got what, a first round pick in 2025?
Yeah, first round and a third round.
Okay, so there's a condition to the pick that San Jose got. And I was actually in Orlando when I found this out, going onto the boat for my trip. And that is the 2025 conditional fourth round pick comes from Winnipeg, and it upgrades to a third, which belonged to Dallas if they make the Stanley Cup Finals, which is very possible because the Dallas Stars are a very
They have
good
a good
team.
roster. They have a great roster.
So that's what I'm saying. So if Dallas makes the finals, then that pick becomes a third rounder. That belongs to them and not the one they got from Winnipeg in the deal. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Nice.
And then what is it? So did you see the other big news that happened on
Well,
the 31st of January?
Well, there was the deal where the New York Rangers ended up getting JT Miller and Eric Branson and Jackson Dorrington from Vancouver for Philip Chaitil, Victor Mancini, and a first round pick in the 2025 draft.
Yep, and it's top 13 protected, which slides to 2026. So basically, if you want to be mathematical about this, this is technically a 3-team trade revolving Pittsburgh, the Rangers, and Vancouver. So you just said it. JT Miller, Eric Branstrom, and Jackson Dorrington went to the New York Rangers. The Vancouver Canucks are getting Philip Chaitil, Victor Mancini, in a 2025 first round protected pick. So what happens next is the pick then gets flipped. And I know you know about this deal. Is the Vancouver Canucks then later flipped the pick they got from the New York Rangers along with Vinny Desharnais, Danton Haynen, and Melvin Fernstrom to the Pittsburgh Penguins in exchange for Drew O'Connor and Marcus Peterson.
Mm-hmm.
What is Vancouver's plan?
I don't know. And they had just become relevant again.
I understand they want to be competitive. And again, we talked about this. The Canucks are a very stubborn franchise.
Yeah.
They're not willing to blow up the core. They're not willing to, say, okay, we admit, we're not great. Maybe it's time that we have to rebuild. But instead, they're just hanging literally by the skin of their teeth. Because if you look at the standings before the break, currently, as of February 13th, 2025, the Vancouver Canucks have 63 points for a 26 and 18 and 11, and they're above 500, which is they're 5 points behind the Avalanche for the first wild card spot. But the Calgary Flames have 60 points, and they're also above 500. Utah is not that far behind, and
Right.
neither is St. Louis. So really, it's between Colorado, Vancouver, Calgary, Utah, and St. Louis.
Yeah. And of course, we got to see a game live in Vancouver back in October. Got to see Tyler Myers' 1,000th game, and of course, we
And
got to
Seattle.
see yeah, and we got to see Miller and Brandstrom and Dorrington actually play in that game. So
Which is crazy. But the Vancouver Canucks are just an incoherent mess. And put it this way, if the playoffs were to start today, the Canucks would be playing the Jets in round one, and immediately I could tell you the Jets would beat the living shit out of them.
yeah, they would. The Jets are a better roster than what a lot of people think.
Oh, yeah, certainly. And it's funny how a year ago almost, or 8 months ago, whatever it was over the summer, we laughed and we were just like, what the fuck is this whole about with
Yeah.
Scott Arniel being the coach?
Yeah,
And
and he's
and now
actually
he
turned the
look
team to be pretty good.
and now we look like damn idiots.
Right.
So
Yeah, they're doing a lot better than what we thought. But
yeah.
yeah, but then of course, Dylan Cousins is getting a lot of interest in the league as well, and I mean that's to be expected with the Sabres playing the way that they are and having no direction whatsoever. Which I will say this is like right now. I'm almost wondering if I even want Kevin Adams to do anything because I just want his ass to be fired and I don't want him to hurt this roster even more.
Well, there are two things I want to address. And the first one is about Cousins. So there is talk the Blackhawks, the Canucks, the Flames, the Predators, and the Red Wings have all been linked to Dylan Cousins. And Adams has specifically said they're not going to trade Cousins just for the sake of trading him. They're going to want picks and they're going to want, players that are already on NHL rosters for Dylan Cousins. Because at this point, I think the Buffalo Sabres want to start, picking up the pace of actually being competitive rather than just waiting 3, 4 years for these prospects to fully develop. Because that's what every former regime in the last 15 years the Sabres have done under Tim Murray. Actually, Tim Murray is an exception.
Yeah,
But if
he overspent and he got a lot of NHL players right off the bat. Ryan O'Reilly is one of them. But then he totally destroyed the Rochester Americans in the farm team, so we had no depth whatsoever, and he basically put us in cap hell. So
well, we're still paying the price, huh?
yeah, we are. Yeah, don't remind me of although it was worse though. Remember Darcy Regier how he had that buyout on Billy Leno and Ehrhoff?
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. Leno with one good year, and then it's like, oh, he's gonna be like the next McJesus in the league, and then it's like we're paying him for like the next 8 years.
Yeah. But there is one other trade I want to go over real quick before I forget. Is the one that took place on January 30th, which I'm surprised nobody talked about this. And that was the one that took place between the Calgary Flames and the Philadelphia Flyers. I'm sure you know which one I'm talking about.
I do.
Yeah. Okay, so Jacob Pelletier, Andre Kuzmenko, a 2025 second round pick, and a 2028 seventh round pick were traded to the Philadelphia Flyers. In exchange, the Calgary Flames are getting Joel Farabee and Morgan Frost. Now, that trade took place on January 30th. So this was the day before I left to go to Orlando when that trade took place. And I was hoping to give that to you before the show last week with Rob, but I never got around to it.
Yeah, and it's an interesting trade because I mean, right now, I mean, it's going to definitely help Philly. I mean, they're getting good forwards, and at the same time, they're getting additional picks that they can work with. So I mean, they can still build within, which is certainly good. I mean, Calgary is playing a lot better than I would have thought this year. So I mean, it's something I think it's a good two-way deal in terms of how it's going to work. So I mean, I don't think it's necessarily a bad trade.
No, I don't think so either. But I think from looking at it from the standards point, the standings perspective, this trade makes no sense for the Flyers unless they go on a massive 10-game win streak.
Right.
But I think this makes more sense for Calgary because they've been wanting to get rid of Kuzmenko for a while. I know Joel Fabry's name has been thrown around for a while about being traded, but finally he got traded to Calgary. But hopefully for his sake, the Flames make the playoffs. And I almost have a feeling, in a sense, that they're going to make a very late push into the season to where they actually outbeat the Canucks because the Canucks are just a clusterfuck and we have no idea how good they are.
Yeah, I mean, and it was interesting when we saw the Canucks play in person. I mean, they absolutely dominated Pittsburgh. I mean, we saw that. But at the same time, they've been inconsistent this year.
Yeah, that's going to be an issue for them. And speaking of inconsistencies, you know what's another shit show that's been inconsistent in terms of contract talks?
Oh yeah, John
It
Gibson wanting out again.
There you go. I was gonna say John Gibson. So Elliot Freeman came out because John Gibson currently has 2 years left on his current deal, and he's
Hmm.
injury prone, he's old and all that jazz.
Right.
But John Gibson's preference is to either be moved to either the Edmonton Oilers or the Carolina Hurricanes. But he wants to be the number one goalie wherever he goes. And I'm not just referring to, oh, trade him to Edmonton, because let's say if you trade him to Edmonton, he would be left with no choice but to share the pipes with Stuart Skinner.
Yeah, and I can tell you, Skinner ain't gonna take that real nice.
Yeah. Now, if you trade him to Carolina, which I think is the better option, think about Carolina's goaltenders for a few minutes. If you think about the Hurricanes goaltending system for a few minutes, you have Freddie Nelson, you have Freddie Anderson in there, who's hurt currently. You have Antti Ranta, who's also injured. But then you have Peter Kochenkov, and then you have another goalie, who I forget his name. But Peter Kochenkov, in my opinion, could be trade bait. Because if you think about what John Gibson wants, you could easily trade Peter Kochenkov to the Ducks as I guess you could say it like as a pairing duo with like Alex Stollers or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure, but
Oh, and
if
to
you
fill you
trade,
in on the other goaltender, Dustin Tokarski.
oh, just Karski, yeah, no wonder why I couldn't think of his fucking name.
Yeah, because he's irrelevant.
That's the point. So Carolina has not had a stellar goalie. As long as the Hurricanes have been competitive in the Stanley Cup playoffs the last few years, as long as I can remember, they have not had stable goaltending. They haven't.
Right.
And Freddie Anderson was supposed to be the one to kind of keep the core in check for a little bit, but then their whole map just expanded. And the next thing you know, um, you have John Gibson who wants to play for the Canes, and it's just like, oh, do you really want to take on $8.5 million of that contract?
Yeah. Oh yeah. And do you really want to deal with that deal? No.
I don't even know. Oh, and speaking of deals, here's a deal for you. What do you think of the three names for Utah?
So they already got rid of one of them.
Oh, wait, what? They did?
Well, remember how they were thinking of the Yeti, but apparently they can't do the deal?
Oh yeah, the Yeti. You mean the Yeti?
Yeah.
What the fuck is a Yeti? The fuck is a Yeti? I have never heard of that
But no, it was interesting though because they have because really right now the Utah Mammoth, the Outlaws, and the Venom are actually the three big names that a lot of people are talking about.
The Venom? I thought it was a hockey club.
Well, there is the hockey club too. I mean, there is that. But apparently, it's going to be interesting though because, I mean, they did add the Outlaws as a choice to the fan vote, and what had happened is on NHL.com they ended up making this change on January 30th, and basically the Utah Outlaws will now be a choice along with the Mammoth and the Hockey Club. The Wasatch, which was the name of a mountain range in Utah, was one of the three original options, but apparently fan voting said, we don't want that name. It sounds like ass.
Yeah. So I have to ask, which one do you prefer between the Utah Outlaws, the Utah Mammoth, or the Utah Hockey Club? Which one do you like better?
I don't mind the Hockey Club, but I would honestly say go with the Utah Mammoth.
I agree. I think Mammoth actually makes more sense because that to me would make the most sense out of the three, and it just sounds a lot better. But think of all the advertisements you could do for Mammoth. Like, yeah, it sounds silly, but at the
Hmm.
same time, you're down to three choices, and you really
Yeah,
don't have much.
yeah. And Utah's already been making improvements in the Delta Center too, because they've been actually averaging around. They actually boosted capacity a little bit to be around 15,000 fans per game, and they actually made some room in the lower bowl for right now. And then of course they're still going to do a redo of the lower bowl, but behind the pipes. But they've been selling out games, and then of course Arizona's like, "Oh, we want our team back." It's like you ain't getting your team back.
Not at least for a little while, no.
Yeah,
But
exactly. And you're not getting another new arena either.
yeah, no, fuck that. But as far as Utah, it's kind of crazy how you think about that franchise because originally they were from Winnipeg. They went from being a Jet to a Coyote to a potentially prehistoric animal that's been dead for 10,000 years.
Right. And I will say, I am happy that that team is finally getting the proper support. Like, they actually have fan support in Salt Lake City. And guess what? News to Gary Bettman, which finally, thank God you're going to retire because we're getting sick of seeing your ass everywhere. But the Arizona experiment failed. Get over it. Guess what? Utah and Salt Lake City is a winter sports market. And guess what? Hockey's doing really good. You probably should have made the move at least 15 years ago.
Yeah, but we knew Bettman was trying like really hard. Like he was trying really hard to make that market work, but it didn't really have, I guess you could say, the fruit or
Yeah.
or you know what I'm saying? Like he didn't really have the source material to expand outside of that. I don't think because there's been a lot of chatter about Ottawa, and I mentioned it a few weeks ago how Spartacat was went viral for that split
Yeah.
jersey I told you about, and then now with the Utah name on the horizon, which I think it's going to be Mammoth at this point. Yeti would have been so cool, but Mammoth you kind of have to just stick with it because that's really all you have left.
Right.
But on the contrast, though, we did mention like 2 months ago, whenever it was, that there was a new group of people that were officially elected in the department, I guess, in the council in Maricopa County, or just like, oh, we're gonna try to make this work, and we're gonna bring in a committee to bring the Coyotes back. It's like, do you not understand that they lost out on a stadium?
Right.
Do you not understand
Yeah.
that you can't keep a team that's within 5,000 seats in capacity? That's inexcusable.
Exactly. Do they not understand that the reason that the Coyotes failed is because they couldn't pay their bills in the current arena that they had, which was totally an NHL built building, and they built it specifically for them. But yet, what happens? It's like, oh, we need to move the arena. It's like, no, you don't. Just use what you have. The taxpayers there don't want to be funding another arena. You've already got 3 of them.
Quite literally. Like it's embarrassing in its own right.
Exactly. So, that being said, I don't think Arizona gets a team anytime soon, and they shouldn't. You know, quite honestly, they shouldn't.
No.
So,
They don't.
yeah, exactly. But that being said, we'll shift to Major League Baseball real quick too, because we only have about 10 minutes left before we wrap up. But I would have loved to have Trevor on for this one because Alex Bregman is going from Houston to the Red Sox.
3 years, $120 million with an opt-out after the first year.
Oh, yeah. And then, of course, for everyone that complains about the luxury tax, guess what? Major League Baseball is actually considering a salary cap.
Quite fucking literally. And you know what? This was long overdue for Major League Baseball. And it's funny, too, because Rob Manfred said he is getting emails from fans concerned over the lack of a salary cap following an offseason spending spree from the Dodgers. So Manfred stated that
The
bargaining
luxury
is
tax.
quite literally. And he said that bargaining is expected to be starting in the spring of 2026. So, Mr. Manfred, with all due respect, sir, how are you able to justify a salary cap? You had, not that it was him and Bud Selig, both of them are guilty of this. So, let me say this. How was it that it took the Dodgers of all teams,
Spending all that money with Otani and everybody else.
you had no problem with the Yankees doing this. You had no problem with, obviously, the Red Sox doing it.
Right.
You had no problem with the Padres doing it. You
problem
had no
with the
problem.
Dodgers.
The Dodgers, the Blue Jays.
Yeah,
You had
the
no
Astros.
problem with them within the 11 years that this douchebag has been the commissioner. And yet, this league is on the verge of another lockout in 2026.
And all of a sudden, now they want to look at a salary cap, especially. And then here's the other thing. And yet, no problem with the Mets doing it. And I don't even think they've hit the territory for the luxury tax yet, even after the the $700+ million deal for Soto.
Yeah, but that is a big difference considering that the Mets hardly ever spend. And for
Right.
them to go over the luxury tax, like, that's different.
Yeah.
But,
And at least they signed Alonso again, so at least that's good.
well, the other thing, too, that's going to be nice about the salary cap thing is if it actually goes through, and I think it will, is this is going to force teams like the Pirates to spend money.
Right. Which they historically don't do. Or teams like Tampa, which never spends. Miami never spends. I mean, a lot of these teams just don't do it. And you wonder, and even I'm trying to think who else I could even throw in there, but I mean, well, the Chicago White Sox doesn't spend. I mean, they're probably already not making the playoffs again this year. So
Well, if it makes you feel better, they actually signed Joey Votto to a minor league deal.
wow, they're actually moving forward in some ways.
Yeah, getting 40-year-old Joey Votto.
Wow,
I mean, not Joey
big,
Votto, Joey Gallo. That's what I meant to say, not Joey Votto.
wow, big deal.
Woo!
You actually did something.
Good job, Chicago.
Yeah, we should drink up to that here. Have a little bit of have a little
Yeah,
bit of the red wine.
that's the way to go. You act. Wow, I'm so proud of Jerry Reinsdorf.
Yeah.
Wow, I'm so proud of him. He actually spent money on a 40 fucking year old.
In fact, you know what? Let's pop the fucking cork. There we
Yeah.
go. Take a
Oh, we
shot of the red wine.
Didn't Bob Nutting, and I think you said it, didn't Tommy Pham sign with the Pirates?
Yeah, he did. Wow, the Pirates actually did a little something too.
Excellent work.
Yeah, in
Oh
fact,
my.
you know what? Here, let's take a second shot of the red wine.
Yeah, keep chugging that shit.
Wow, two
Oh my.
teams that don't spend it actually did a little something.
Yeah, quite literally. I feel like that's half of the fucking league. Oh, you know it's another team that hasn't spent shit in the last few years?
Mhm.
The Angels.
Yeah, yeah, and they're in purgatory too, and they still
30.
haven't spent.
Yep. And you know what they do for all this? Let's sign 37-year-old Kenley Jensen to a 1 year, $10 million deal.
Oh, Jesus. All right, we'll do one last shot because I don't want to get drunk. So, one more for the Angels. Yeah.
Tom, your face is already drunk.
I don't give a fuck. I don't have to be anywhere until tomorrow morning. So, but that being said, of course, with the lockout, we have spring training that's coming up, and the pitchers are reporting first. And then, of course, we just one of the things we mentioned too, or I don't think we mentioned it, but Kenley Jensen to the Angels.
I just said that
Oh,
2
yeah,
minutes
that's
ago.
right. Okay, I drank for that. All right.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You're fucking drunk already. I just said that like 2 minutes ago.
That's all good. That's all
But
good.
you know what? Your favorite fat bastard, Daniel Vogelback, has been hired to be the special hitting assistant for the Pittsburgh Pirates.
Wow, they actually decided to go ahead and bring him in as a coach, and they figured, well, Vogelback can't do anything.
He's my age. He's got about at least 3, 4 years of production left. And you
Right.
just said you go from being a designated hitter for 4 to 6 teams to being, fuck it, I'm going to be an assistant hitting coach for the fucking Pirates.
Wow.
How does that even work?
Was he that desperate to still be in the league this year, or was Pittsburgh that desperate to get someone like Vogelback?
I have no idea, and I don't even know if I care because
I
it's
don't
the
necessarily either. In fact, hey Rob, if you're listening, jump on real quick. I'd love to pick your brain on this one.
oh my god. I mean, yeah, cool. Let's bring back Andrew McCutcheon for the billionth time.
Yeah. And then we won't resign Aroldis Chapman, but we'll keep Skeens, which I made the bet with Rob that I think Skeens is out after his rookie contract.
Well, I mean, it's possible. We really don't know. But so here's the logic, just from the Pittsburgh Pirates. You want to bring in Daniel Vogelback, who we saw play at City Field a few years ago.
the fat ass who basically goes around to every single team known to mankind.
Yep. And then he's a one-time All-Star. But no. So you go from Aroldis Chapman, who's what, 35?
I want to say 35 or 36 and can still throw 105.
But yet you bring in Tommy Pham, who's around the same age, and then you also bring in Daniel Vogelback to be the hitting assistant. What the fuck?
That team defies logic at this point.
Nothing makes sense. And you know, it makes perfect sense why Bob Nutting is called Nutting and not Nut Job, because considering that, oh my god, I can't imagine what it's like to be a Pirates fan.
Yeah. In fact, Rob, if you're listening, let's have you on next week because I want to ask you about this. Actually, we would love to ask you about what it is like to be the Pittsburgh Pirates fan who has to go through misery every single year with the choices that Bob Nutting makes.
Oh God. Oh, and you want to know something else too? We should also mention is the Baltimore Orioles will introduce orange pants on their
Oh,
uniforms.
Jesus.
Oh, cool. So you want to look like the Anaheim Ducks now?
Yeah, really. That makes no sense.
Listen, I like orange on a jersey, but
Hmm.
that's too much.
Yeah.
That's
What are they trying to do? Be the Astros of the East now or something?
I have no idea. So an orange jersey and an orange pants with orange socks with some stripes like tigers, and yet you have your traditional Orioles cap. Like,
Yeah.
no, 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 no,
Right.
no.
Exactly. Exactly. It just makes no
Nothing,
sense.
nothing makes sense at all at this point.
Yeah.
Nothing.
It really doesn't. It really doesn't.
Ay, ay, ay. And to
But
think that my fat ass literally walked around Camden Yards back in September. Beautiful ballpark, but
hmm
orange fucking pants, Thomas,
oh
on a
God, no.
fucking baseball jersey.
Hell no. Hell no. I mean, that would be like going into Citizens Bank Park with Philadelphia, or and having something similar, or that would be like going into City Field and having the orange like special jersey. Like, and you've seen my Piazza jersey, which is the orange special jersey, and that would be like having orange pants with that. It's like it just doesn't work.
No, I agree. And I think for the Mets to bring in an orange alternate jersey would have been not such of a bad idea. But no, they go with the 80s look and they go New York script and
Yep.
royal blue as a road jersey. You could have done something different, Mets. But no,
Yeah.
you oh my
I
God.
must say I do like that orange alternate jersey.
I do, but it hasn't been worn in 20 years.
Right. Although I do have one. That's the Mike Piazza jersey, so
Damn right.
so I do have that. But I was gonna say, like, before we wrap up, so I kind of teased a little bit why we were here tonight and not last night.
Yes.
So I actually got to interview former NFL coach I got to
Head
interview
coach.
former head coach Hugh Jackson last night. So I actually got to I got invited by former Buffalo and Cleveland sports broadcaster Lauren Brill, and she actually runs a site called The Unsealed, which she put that together. It's basically like a thing for empowerment and get to meet a lot of people and things like that. And she has some different guests that come on from time to time, and it's actually the second time I've actually been part of an interview stream that they've had. But Hugh Jackson, I got to talk with him last night, and there was 15 others, like 15 altogether on the interview panel, including myself. Yours truly got to kick off the questioning, so that was pretty cool to see. And I will say, Hugh Jackson was really interesting to meet. First and foremost, really nice guy, really down to earth, really cool to dive in and talk about different things with. And some of what I ended up asking him was about the situation in Cleveland with the fact when he took the job, he had a good roster, then it turned to absolute crap, and of course him getting the deal that he did, where he got fired. But it was really interesting to learn some of like how he thinks about things and how he approaches football and how he approaches life in general. So really cool guy to talk to, and who knows, maybe I'll see if I can try to get him on here at some point because I would love to do like a more in-depth interview with him. And I mean, and we were limited for time. We only had an hour, and there was like 15 of us, so I could only do like two questions. But I just want to say if Lauren's watching this show, which I know she does sometimes, of course, you know I appreciate you offering the opportunity to come on last night, and certainly theunsealed.com is her site, so check it out. And I just want to say it was a great conversation with them. So that's where I was yesterday. So I actually got to be part of a pretty big interview, which was pretty sweet.
Absolutely. Oh, by the way, you know what I totally forgot we forgot to talk about
What's that?
was was the James Cook situation.
Oh yeah, how he wants $15 million. Guess what? You ain't getting it.
Well, okay. First off, no running back in the National Football League is ever getting $15
Yeah,
million.
not even Saquon Barkley, and he had over 2,400 yards this year.
Saquon Barkley has a bargain contract in
He does.
comparison.
Yeah, and the Giants were stupid to get rid of him too.
Oh my God. That was a giant blunder from the
Yeah,
Giants.
it was. It
Like,
was.
really? You're gonna pay Daniel Jones over Saquon Barkley?
Right, and now Saquon Barkley's got a ring.
Yep. And Daniel Jones is a fucking practice squad player on the Vikings.
Yeah, and Jones ain't going to be doing anything. His NFL career is done. But Saquon Barkley, congratulations, man. You earned that Super Bowl, and you deserve a Super Bowl.
Without a doubt. But In my opinion, I do think that Brandon Bean and James Cook will talk. I mean, I think that's a little delusional to think that you want $15 million. But the thing that really pisses me off about this whole ordeal is how people magically hate the guy. And he's like, oh, he's a diva. He's this, he's that. Why? Because he wants $15 million. Why couldn't you just say, oh, we want 10.5 million for 4 years and take it or leave it? You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like, I would love for him to stay, but if he actually stands his ground on $15 million, then you have to really take into consideration.
Yeah,
Do you trade him or do you let him go in free agency?
I would
What do
say
you do?
I would say trade him and get assets for him.
Some people were even throwing the idea around of trading him in a deal with the Browns to get Miles Garrett or to the Raiders to get Max Crosby.
I would. If he wants 15 million, let them deal with it.
Well,
I
it also
mean,
depends
it'll
on who
improve
wants
the
him.
yeah. I mean, it'll improve the pass rush. I mean, you definitely need that. You have to improve the defense, and especially if we're gonna beat Kansas City and actually not worry about the refs, you have to improve the defense. I mean, you
Yeah.
can't. You have to get another edge rusher, and even one of the things I know you had thought about this is even throwing Rousseau in there, which I think Rousseau's a good player, but it's still, is he entirely where he should be yet? I don't think he is, but I mean, I think he's a good player. You could definitely get assets for him, and you could use it to help sweeten the deal. So, I mean, there's a lot of different ways it could go. But if you're going to go after Miles Garrett, if James Cook is going to be stuck on wanting 15 million, draft a running back. Coming up in the draft in less than 3 months, you could easily do that, and you could easily get a starter. But and there's no good QBs this year, which obviously we don't need one. But at the same time, running backs, you're always going to find running backs in the draft, and you can always get them on a rookie deal, and you can always sign them for cheap. So throw them in as part of a deal with Garrett or Crosby. Honestly, I would love to see Miles Garrett here. I'd love to see Max Crosby here. I'd love to see either.
The big issue is a lot of people love James Cook, and I do as well. I
Yeah,
love
same
James
here.
Cook.
He's a great player.
But the problem is the Bills only used him for 40% of the season. It's not like the 49ers with a healthy Christian McCaffrey where they use him for
Right.
85% of
Oh
the play.
yeah, yeah. I mean, he's not like one of those guys you're gonna throw in on all three downs. I mean,
Like, I'll put it this way. Christian McCaffrey makes $19 million with the 49ers, and that's a
right.
lot of money.
Yeah, especially with him being injury prone, but he is so good when he's actually healthy.
Well, yeah, and this is an issue because it's not injuries that are a concern for me for James Cook. It's never that situation.
Right.
It's the fact that if you pay James Cook 15 million exactly how he wants it, which I think Dalvin has something to do with this because he's kind of whispering in
Yeah,
his ear.
he wants him on Dallas. We all know that. Or he wants him somewhere else. He wants to play with his brother. And I
It's
can,
never going to happen because
yeah,
Dalvin might retire.
yeah. And Dallas ain't going to be good for a long time either.
No, definitely not. But oh, speaking of the Cowboys, I definitely want to mention something about them real quick. But let me just finish
Yeah.
this sentence. So, as far as the Cowboys, I mean the Cowboys, the Bills. As far as the Bills are, um, I love James Cook, but if it gets to a point where he still stands tall on the $15 million, then you have to trade him.
Yeah.
But he could very well hold out and still negotiate a deal because aside from McCaffrey, he is not getting $15 million.
No, nobody is.
I mean, is he a great running back? Yes, he's a very good running back. But is he that good? No. But I would certainly say that if you pay James Cook with what you want from him, you're not going to be able to get Myles Garrett. You're not going to be able to improve the secondary. You're not going to be able to improve the wide receiver core. You're
Right.
not going to be able to really be able to do
Yeah.
anything unless you wait till June 1st, you cut Von Miller, which if you cut him there, you're saving $23.8 million in the salary
Right.
cap just by cutting him that day.
Yeah. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if they do that at this point because he's already restructured once since being here. And Von Miller, as much as I like him and he's gonna be a Hall of Famer,
He's washed.
he's done. I mean, that knee injury totally destroyed him.
Yeah, and you know what too is I'm actually not against the idea of trading Von Miller to another team. Like I wouldn't be surprised if they find a way to trade him because I think here's the thing I view about Von Miller. I love Von Miller. He's a future Hall of Famer, and he's gonna end up in Canton.
Yeah.
But the dude is a snake oil salesman. All he does is run his big fucking mouth. He always advertises the team and say, we're that close, or oh, we could do it together. We'll get over the hump. We'll do this. It's like, Vaughn, shut the fuck up. All you do is just bribe everybody into this false belief that the Bills are actually closer than the people actually say they are. And then on top of all that, you then have the audacity to take in $120 million for 6 fucking years. You have an opt-out in your 4th year of your deal, which the Bills are probably going to take an advantage of. And considering that they have to get younger in that unit and in that position, if you're going to win the Super Bowl, this is the offseason to do it.
Right, and they have to get bigger, stronger, and quicker in that area. And right now, that's one of the biggest things that killed us against the Chiefs.
Yeah, and
Or
considering
other teams, for that matter.
how many first rounders on that team, or that were first or second rounders on that defensive unit? Ed Oliver, Greg Russo, who else?
Those are the 2 primary ones I can think of.
AJ Epinesa.
Yeah, who was brought back after being gone twice.
It's like, what? Oh, Jordan Phillips, his fat ass.
Yeah, somehow.
I mean, and I always hated the idea of bringing back Jordan Phillips. I honestly think that at this point of his career, he's just fan service. That's really
Right.
what I think it is.
Yeah, but realistically though, they have to improve that side of the ball. They really do.
I think they will.
Epinesa's a good player. He's had some good flashes. Russo's a good player. He's had good flashes. I actually got to meet him about a year and a half ago, and cool guy to meet in person and all that. So okay, you got 2 younger players there with Epinesa and Russo, but you still have to build out the rest of that unit because Von Miller is pretty much at the end of his career. Jordan Phillips, why the fuck we brought him back, I don't even know.
Hell, and you know what too? I'll say this. It's not just Myles Garrett or Max Crosby I solely focus on. If plans A and B don't work, plan C, Trey Hendrickson. Plan
There you
D,
go.
Micah Parsons, who, by the way, the Cowboys are highly considering trading.
Right. And they need to get younger on their defense also. So there's a lot of different ways it could go. And then, I would have to look at the draft a little bit further, but the problem is if you draft somebody, I don't even think there's someone necessarily in the first round as an edge rusher that we could really go with.
I can't think of anybody at this moment because I'm not even in draft mode yet. But as
Right.
far as, as far as free agency, there's definitely cheaper options out there that could definitely help with, stopping the run and getting to the quarterback and all that. Like, here's a perfect example. Josh Sweat is going to be a free agent in 3 weeks. So for him to be a UFA to B, and the Philadelphia Eagles are highly unlikely we're signing him at this point. Zach Bond is also a free agent. So
Right.
if you really want to take an overhaul on the entire defensive end unit, my gut is trade Greg Russo why he still has value. Because what's going to happen is he's going to say, I had a great year. I'm going to earn my contract, but I want this much money.
Right. And we realistically could get some good value for him. But then if we have to take the option of going into the draft, the top 3, and I just actually pulled this up, the top 3 that are in the scouting reports right now, Abdul Carter is number 1, James Pierce Jr. is number 2, Michael Williams is number 3. But the big one is going to be, of course,
Carter.
the big one.
Yeah,
So-
he's getting drafted very early. I have a sense that he's going to get drafted to the Jets, but we'll do a mock draft in March,
Yeah, of
or
course.
early April, whenever we usually do it, and we'll do a mock draft with the boys, and then we'll figure that out from there. But as
Yeah.
far as that discussion about James Cook is, if you pay him $15 million, you are not going to be competing for a very long time.
Exactly. And
this is-
we are close.
They are close. But again, if James Cook wants to be an entitled brat and he wants to get paid $15 million, some people in the fanhood don't fully understand that, yeah, you want to pay him, but you're also paying for the consequences of the team's actions. They've already made this decision already and regret it with Von Miller.
Right.
And they have an opportunity to cut his ass in, June 1st during around the time of training camp.
And then even going back further than Von Miller, look at what happened with Marcel Darius, how he took that big ass contract, and then we were screwed for a while too, and we had to eat all that cap.
Like, the big thing is, I understand that running backs don't have a very long span, in the NFL, unless you're Derrick Henry when he's like
Right.
31 years old. But most of the time, look at Todd Gurley. Todd Gurley lasted no longer than 5 years, and then
Yeah.
later suffered with arthritis in his knees.
Yeah, I mean, he was injury prone to begin with, so I mean, he didn't get like a lot of playing time. I mean, he was washed up.
And yeah, that's the problem. Is if James Cook wants to be paid, which is understandable, you are not getting $15 million, not just from the
No,
Bills, but you're
definitely
not getting 15 from anybody. The New
Right.
England Patriots would never pay that kind of money
Exactly. They would pay maybe 10 tops.
at minimum. So the point is that there is a lot that goes into this James Cook situation, and people are just throwing their hands up, saying, "Oh, sorry, bye, see you later, loser, bye, diva. We don't want a Stephon Diggs 2.0. We don't want that again." It's like, let the situation play itself out. I assure you that there will be a deal in place between the two. If he wants to take a team-friendly deal for about 10.5 million, fine. I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
But if you're gonna pay him more than like 12 million, I would not even consider it.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. And it's like, in that case, trade him.
That's the point. So that's probably why people are like so eager to get rid of him, because they know and they want Miles Garrett, because he's
Right.
probably the best pass rusher in the trade market.
Hmm.
But he's 30 years old. But Max Crosby is a hell of a player too. But people are saying trade him to Cleveland, because I'm pretty sure, maybe you can help me on this. I'm almost positive that Nick Chubb is a free agent also.
I want to say I think he is. And
Is he?
let me see.
Because I just read like a week ago that he is a free agent.
Yeah, he is actually an unrestricted free agent as of next month.
Wow. Wow, 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 wow.
So then, think about it this way. You give Nick Chubb some money to come here, and he may take less than what you have with James Cook. Keep Ray Davis here. You could actually upgrade your running back core.
I don't know. I mean, I love Nick Chubb, but the big knee injury that he suffered a
Yeah.
year or two ago really killed him.
Right. Or basically, think about it this way. If Cook decides to stay and he takes a team friendly deal, then think about it in the sense if you have Cook, you have Nick Chubb, and you have Ray Davis as your three running backs. Oh, that's not a bad core at all.
But here's how I look at it. If you bring in Nick Chubb as a free agent, give him a 1 year prove it deal.
Yeah. And then pay him if he does.
That's what I would do. Give him a 1 year deal and see how he pans out.
Yeah.
But that's quite literally how I look at it.
Yeah. It'd be very interesting, and especially with the fact that, I mean, Miles Garrett wants out. And I would have to think Nick Chubb probably wants out. There you go. But then here's the other thing. He actually Nick Chubb ended up breaking his foot against the Chiefs in Week 15. But he should be good to go, by the time training camp, of course.
But again, it's not the knee injury that's the issue. The issue was when he had that massive injury that tore his ACL.
Yeah. Yeah, very true. So it'll be interesting to see how things work. And I mean, even looking at some of the sites, like the Dog Pound Daily, which is a blog site for the Cleveland Browns, they're basically saying Vegas could be a spot. The New York Jets, the Bengals, the Bears, or the Chargers are the five most likely spots.
For who? Nick Chubb?
Yep.
Oh, dude, if he goes to the Bengals, all of Cleveland is going to hate his ass.
Oh yeah, yeah, they absolutely would.
Well, here's another thing I should also mention. Along with other running backs too, is what was I gonna say? I just saw the list. I'm sorry. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, if you want to talk about running backs, Aaron Jones, Najee Harris, and J.K. Dobbins are all free agents this year.
So there's another option you can add to the core.
Yeah, well, let's see. How about defensive ends? Because I definitely want to see that. Here we go. Edge rushers. You have Josh Sweat, Hassan Reddick, and Khalil Mack in your top three.
I would be fine with Mac.
Yeah, Nick Bolton, Bobby Wagner, and Dre Greenlaw are the top three linebackers in this free agent class. Then you have guys like DJ Reed, Travarius Ward, and Razzle Douglas, who, by the way, if I'm the Buffalo Bills, because that's going to be an issue,
Yeah.
Razzle Douglas should go. I like him, but and he slowed down a bit.
Yeah. What would you think of them re-signing Mac Hollins?
It depends. Depends what you give him.
Hmm. But take a team-friendly deal? Hell, I'd keep him.
Give him like 2 years. Give him 2 years for like 10 million.
Yeah, there you go. I
That's
mean,
what I would
he
do.
made some good plays. I mean, he definitely made some impact, which is a good thing to see.
Like I know Brandon Bean says this almost every year that they're not going to do anything in free agency, but it almost
He
in a way
always does.
he's full of shit. He says it every year.
Yeah, he always does stuff in free agency.
Oh yeah, it's not like he's not blind to it. He's not saying, "Oh, we're perfectly fine." No,
No.
there's definitely positions of need.
Oh yeah, and he's always going to tell people that. I mean, he's been here. This will be his 8th year now.
Is it? Wow, really? Wow.
Yeah, well, it'll be McDermott's 8th season with us already, and he's been to
Like,
the playoffs like 6 out of 7 times.
the thing that's frustrating is Bills fans know that the team is so close to making it to the friggin' Super Bowl.
Hmm.
Why blow up something that you've already worked so hard for? You know?
Exactly, and that's like one of the things that a lot of these fans are saying. It's like, oh, fire McDermott, fire Bean, they'll never get us there. Dude, do you want 17 years of no playoff football again?
No.
No. Like literally, this is the best that our team has been in how many years? And being a McDermott, okay, yes, McDermott has made some stupid decisions. Bean has struck out on some of his draft picks, but this realistically is the most stable front office we've had and is the most stable coaching roster we've had. Now, I do like the fact that McDermott fired 2 of his coaches. He fired the special teams coach, which that happened earlier in the week, and today he fired the strength and conditioning coaches because obviously our injuries in the beginning of the season and injury prone seasons the last several years have been a problem. And the strength and conditioning coach that they fired was before McDermott started here. So you can't say that he didn't give him a good shot.
Right. Like I'm just saying, like it's crazy to me to think that all that was happening prior to McDermott. Like again, you know, there's only so much you can do for a team to build around. Like if you look at teams like the Eagles didn't have to spend a lot of money on free agents.
Right.
They drafted very, very well.
Yeah.
And Howie Roseman,
They're
I think
really good at drafting.
Howie Roseman definitely deserves his flowers.
Yes. Yes. And I will say the drafting capabilities the Eagles have is probably one of the best in the league, if not the best in the league.
Hell, I would take them over Kansas City.
Yeah, I would. I absolutely would.
Oh, and here's my last comment for the night before we wrap up. Ken Dorsey.
Yeah, him getting fired by the Browns.
And you know where he ended up going to next?
Yeah, it's hilarious.
He's the new offensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys.
Jerry! It's like, okay, what's Jerry Jones gonna do now? Be the offensive coordinator, the head coach, the defensive coordinator, the special teams coordinator, and basically pout every single time that they lose? Oh my god.
Okay, so
How
here's
the
the
hell did he get another offensive coordinating job after he failed with the Bills, he failed with the Browns, and now it's like you want to put him on an even bigger stage with the Dallas Cowboys?
Oh my God.
Like, does does Dorsey have like something going on that we don't know about? Like does he like have this thing where he can expose all these owners or something if he doesn't get a job or something crazy? I mean, Dorsey has done nothing to prove that he's an OC.
Exactly. And here's the other issue too, is if you look at the Dallas Cowboys coaching staff this year,
Hmm.
ready? You have Brian Schottenheimer, who was a shitty offensive coordinator for the Cowboys,
Yeah.
suddenly becomes the coach because Mike McCarthy sucks. So he gets promoted. He becomes a laughing joke and numbnuts of a hire. His offensive coordinator is now Ken Dorsey. Then his defensive coordinator is Matt Eberflus.
Good job, Jerry Jones. You just made the Cowboys look even worse than this year.
And now you're going to lose Micah Parsons.
And you're stuck with Dak.
Oh my God.
It's like, okay, Jerry Jones, guess what? You found a way to make the team worse.
America's team, more like America's dumpster fire.
Yeah. Yeah, seriously. Oh my God.
How? Just fucking how?
Yeah, they'll win at least two less games this year.
Ay, 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 ay,
Yay.
ay. My God.
That's bad.
And one more thing, and I promise you this is my last
Yeah.
one, is Colorado prospect Travis Hunter. You know how he plays wide receiver and cornerback?
Yep.
He's made up his mind. He's going into the NFL as a cornerback and not a wide receiver.
Okay. That's good to hear.
Yep, and Shador Sanders' younger brother Shiloh was not invited to the combine.
Sucks to be him.
Quite literally.
Yep. So good stuff. But I will say, man, we had some good stuff tonight. We actually went almost 2 hours. So I was just thinking about it.
Well, that's what happens when you miss me.
Yeah, although Rob said he didn't. I'm kidding, man. But no, it's good stuff tonight. Obviously, as we get closer into the draft, we're gonna start covering that a little bit more, and we'll start, of course, covering different things with the Bills as we get closer to that. But otherwise, as usual, of course, we always appreciate you stopping by and checking us out. And yeah, somehow we didn't have any comments tonight. That was weird, but usually we do. But that being said, hey, join us next Wednesday as usual. We'll be here. And of course, in the meantime, take care of yourselves and each other. And we'll see you next week.